And good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the November monthly meeting of the Acadiana Press Club. I'm Ian Ozan, the Vice President of the club. Claire Taylor, our President, couldn't be here today, so I'm filling in and moderating our event today. The November Forum, of course, will be focusing on the Lafayette City Marshals. We'll get to that in a second. Dr. Pearson Cross, political science professor from UL, will come up later on at the end of the forum to talk about elections in general. So we'll have him a little bit later on for those of you who came to see him today. The one ground rule that we will follow this afternoon with regards to questioning. Questions may only be asked by members of the Acadiana Press Club. If you've not paid your dues, if you've not signed up, we have forms here. Who's responsible to take care of that? Is that Marissa?
Nathan.
Nathan.
Either Marshall or Nathan.
So either Marshall or Nathan. If you want to join now, you may. One of the two will have forms. If not, they'll definitely have to take your money, and we'll go ahead and get you your form and your membership credentials once we have them. But again, if you want to ask questions, you have to be a member of the Acadiana Press Club, and we will accept donations today. The main event today, of course, is the forum for the Lafayette City Marshals candidates. The two candidates were gracious enough to join us today, starting to my immediate left, Kip Judies, formerly captain of the Lafayette Parish Sheriff's Office, 29 years with the Sheriff's Office, attaining the rank of captain before leaving the Sheriff's Office earlier this year. To his left is Captain, you were captain, right? Captain Brian Pope, the Lafayette City Marshal's Office, was with the Marshal's Office for 22 years, has 24 years total of law enforcement experience, the other 2 years working for the Lafayette Parish Sheriff's Office. These two men vying to become the next Lafayette City Marshal, the first man to have held the office since 1984 when the current Marshal, Nikki Picard, took over. And on a side note, one of these two men will become only the fourth man in the last 50 years to hold that title. And following a pretty impressive list of names, Nikki Picard, Dallas Broussard, and of course, the former Sheriff, Don Breaux. So gentlemen, congratulations on making it to the runoff, and we'll go ahead and turn things over to you now. We'll start with a quick 2-minute introduction. Again, I'll start to the man to my near left, Kip Judies. Go ahead.
Thank you. Ian, I want to thank you and the Acadiana Press Club for hosting this today. I think it's extremely important that we educate the people of Lafayette between the two candidates that are running for office. A little bit about myself. I am a 29-year veteran of the Lafayette Parish Sheriff's Office. I've been married to my wife, Susan, for the last 23 years, and we have 2 children, Emily and Brandy. Both are unavailable here today, but my wife is here. In my law enforcement career, I started as a dispatcher, and I worked through the entire agency from the enforcement side. I've handled many major investigations. I've supervised other major investigations, to include the Derek Todd Lee case, the Randy Como case, the Southside rapist case. So I have a vast experience in investigative experience. The last 7 years of my 7 years at the Sheriff's Office, I've been in the administration, and I've supervised the Uniform Patrol Department with 168 employees and an over $7 million budget. I kept a balanced budget each year. I've also served as the agency's public information officer. So out of 800 employees that Sheriff Newstrom could select from, I was the person he selected as his spokesperson. And we just continue to progress with that. The Acadiana Press Club knows my commitment to openness, my commitment to transparency. And I think that's one of the things that we're going to hear a little bit more about today, and I offer this with respect to transparency. There are 2 people sitting in front of you today. One of the candidates filed a campaign finance disclosure and has filed that within the 72-hour period of qualifying. The other one did not. And in fact, he was served with a subpoena last Wednesday by Louisiana State Police to produce the financial disclosure. And so I think that that's one thing right there that shows that there is a candidate sitting in front of you that's prepared to serve as a public servant, and one that's not quite as prepared. So I look forward to answering your questions today.
Brian, go ahead.
My name is Brian Pope, and I'm a candidate for City Marshal. Like Ian said earlier, I'm a 24-year law enforcement veteran. 22 of those last years was spent with the Lafayette City Marshal's Office. The last 10 of those 22 was spent as the captain of that office, ran the day-to-day operations of that office. Before I continue, I do have my beautiful wife, Carrie, sitting with me today. She's been on my arm the whole campaign. We continue on with the office. I was also the accreditation manager for the office. We were the first marshal's office in the nation to ever be accredited by Kalia. I'm also a graduate of USL. I'm the only college graduate in the race. I graduated from USL in Criminal Justice Administration and Political Science. And moving forward with the office, I'm ready to take the wheel. And like I said, I'm the one with the most experience in the Lafayette City Marshal's office.
Thank you, gentlemen. The first question I have, because both of you have worked in law enforcement for 29 years, both of you had the opportunity to work under two men who have served as former city marshals. Kip, you're beginning your career under Don Breaux, and Brian, in your case, under both Mr. Breaux and current Marshal Picard. How does your experience working under those gentlemen and your experience as a whole in law enforcement prepare you for this office? I'll go ahead and start with Brian this time.
Actually, as a child, a high school student, I was actually involved with more than one sheriff in my life. Carl Lewis, I grew up with that family also. Moving to college, I was friends with the sons of Don Breaux, who was a sheriff at the time. Grew up with that family also, and then beginning with the sheriff's department, I worked under Don Breaux, which I have all the respect for. Then I moved on to the Lafayette City Marshal's office under Nikki Picard, who I have the utmost respect for because he's been my boss for the last 22 years. He's taught me everything I know, and he's a law enforcement icon. Contrary to somewhat other people have done to him in the campaign. But anyway, that's my stance on it.
Yeah, my preparation, having worked for Sheriff Breaux and Sheriff Newstrom, and all of the chief deputies and supervisors have each given me a tool for my toolbox with respect to law enforcement leadership. And I take a lot from those 29 years, from all of my sergeants, lieutenants, captains, etc. Brian doesn't have that. Brian simply does not. He's worked for Mr. Picard, and that's all he has. Now, with respect to my level of respect for Nikki Picard, if you go back and look at a Morning Advocate article sometime back, you will see that when we started this campaign, I acknowledge that man is a law enforcement icon, and I don't waver from that. Mr. Picard has served this city and has served it well. And I certainly look forward to visiting with him after we win the election so that we can continue the movement. I'll tell y'all this. I bring to that office on January 1st, 2015, what Nikki Picard did on June 1st, 1984. The vision, the leadership skill, and the desire to move the agency forward in a lot of areas. So, again, my platform is very, very extensive, but with regards to where I want to go, it's not about status quo. It's about taking the agency to the next level. My eyes are set on December 31st of 2020 when this term ends, not necessarily just based on what we were doing in January of 2015. So I think that what we need to do is we need to look at how do we progress the city forward. This is a very progressive city, and it's something that we can do through increased technology. We can look at alternatives to incarceration. We can do some things way more forward thinking than where we're at this point.
Both of you talking about advancing the office forward. I know Kip, you elaborated a little bit on that a second ago. Ryan, I'm going to go ahead and hear what you would do to advance the office.
Well, I want to tell y'all straight up that you have a Lafayette City Marshal's office that you can be proud of. In the last 10 years, since I was appointed captain, we have grown. We have vision. We're moving into the future as we speak. We're accredited. We have a training division. We have everything that the Marshal's office. And can it be better? Yes, it can be better. When you wake up every morning, you want to have a better day than the last day. I mean, everything can be better, and that's the movement I'm going to have for the office, is to keep it moving forward, because we have a good office.
If you want to add to anything you said.
I don't dispute that it's a good office, but like he said, can it be better? We certainly could have an interactive website where people could go on and see when their court dates are potentially coming up so that we can do some things. We can have a text alert for people who have court dates coming up. When I started talking about text alert, the Lafayette Parish Sheriff's Office decided that they would try it because it sounded like a good idea. In the last 3 weeks, the last 3 court appearances, they've contacted people who they had phone numbers for and said, you have court coming up. There's been a 16% reduction in the number of people or failing to appear in court. That comes from Rob Reardon, Director of Corrections. My ideas will work, and those are the things that we need to look forward to. We can get up here and say we're going to do better. We can get up here and say we're going to wake up and have a better day tomorrow. But let's do it. And that's what my experience and my leadership will take us.
Both of you had experience in the media, of course. Kip is a public information officer. Brian, of course, with Holding Accountable on the Open Channel, which you've done for going on, 10, 12 years now?
12 years.
Talk about how your experience working with the media will help with transparency in the office and will help getting the word out about what the Marshal's office has to do or is doing in the community.
Well, our TV show Holding Accountable was designed as a community program at first. We do show pictures of wanted people. The intentions of the program was not to fill the jail. As you know, the current sheriff does not let misdemeanors be booked in the parish jail. So Lafayette City Court is a misdemeanor court. So that's all we handle is misdemeanors. But the show has given us a good vision for the future. I think a lot of people interact, and it's also caused some transparency. The people can come to us and turn themselves in, get another court date without going to jail. The office has always been open to everybody, as long as I've been there, for sure.
Well, with regards to the transparency of the office, I don't dispute that the doors are open and that you can come in and turn yourself in, but I think it goes well beyond that. And it goes to things like filing your campaign finance reports. Brian has developed a pattern of violating the ethics law. If you look at the ethics website, you will see that there was a report due prior to the November 4th election, and it was filed on November 11th, or I'm not sure the date, I'm sorry, not that date. But in any case, he filed a late report. Again, just another pattern of being late, being not transparent, and not showing where his campaign finances are going. It's intended, that deadline was intended to be out in advance of the primary election day, but he waited until afterwards to file it. And again, still no campaign disclosure. So from a transparency standpoint, I think it speaks for itself with respect to Mr. Pope.
Well, with that said, Kip, I do have to ask, there was an issue that came up in the campaign. I think it was Mr. Picard who brought it up in some of his commercials with an incident that took place while you were still with the sheriff's office. And if you can elaborate on that, what happened there? And
Sure, absolutely. Well, first let me say that at no time did I ever break the law. Anyone in this room can drink a beer and drive home. You're not going to be over 0.08 blood alcohol content. So at no time did I break the law. I did break a rule at the sheriff's office, and with respect to that, again, many people know that I was a 24-hour a day, 7-day on-call person as patrol commander. So I was given certain liberties or allowed certain things by the administration. And there was a misinterpretation. I violated the rule of the law, of the rule of the office, and I took my punishment for it. And that's very simple. And I'm responsible, and I've accepted it.
what was that punishment, if I may ask?
It was a 3-day suspension without pay.
All right, I'll go ahead and turn over the questions to the floor now, again, from members of the Acadiana Press Club who have questions. Billy, go ahead.
Have either of you talked to Mr. Picard about what happened and also people in his office?
I have not talked with Mr. Picard.
I haven't talked to Mr. Picard. I've been in contact with the deputy marshals. Since he hasn't made the runoff, they have been released to speak to whatever candidate they reached out to. So that's all I have to say.
And again, for those who came in late, members of the Acadiana Press Club may ask questions. If you're not a paid member of the Press Club, Nathan or Marshall can get you taken care of, and we can go ahead and get you in the debate on the floor. Go ahead, Marie.
What do you think is the biggest crime problem in Lafayette Parish, and how would you address it as city marshal or city?
Well, it's okay. I'll just say this, that the crime, the 911 response, the issue is not a primary responsibility of the city marshal's office. Now, the biggest crime problem in Lafayette continues, I think, to be the drug issues that we see. The synthetic marijuana is a big thing right now, but it's always been a narcotics-related kind of offense. And typically when people are breaking in a house, it's so that they can go get narcotics. So there's a lot of narcotics-driven issues with regards to that. I think what we do is we try, as an elected official, either one of us, should be committed to saying, how do we educate the public? How do we educate the young people of Lafayette from our role as a city marshal? Again, we don't respond to the 911 calls or the actual crime issues, the statistical stuff that you would typically see. But I think that is a key. committing to helping educate our youth in terms of the down effects of narcotics and their uses and addiction.
Brian?
Like I said earlier, Lafayette City Court is a misdemeanor court. The highest charge that we take in is up to aggravated assault. Everything else is filed in district court, all your drug-related offenses. All our criminal work is generated by the Lafayette Police Department. All the arrests they make on misdemeanor charges and all the tickets they write are filed in city court, and that's what generates our work for city court. The biggest crime that we see as far as our job is domestic violence is a big issue, and OWIs also in the city court.
With regards to the drugs, the OWIs, domestic violence cases that come through the city court, what can the city marshals do on the preventative side to make sure that those cases don't come in or that repeat offenders don't come in? Do you have any ideas for programs in the community to reduce the numbers of these crimes?
As far as domestic violence, I'm currently on the Domestic Violence Council as we speak. There are programs there for them, the Faith House and all that stuff. Anything else that comes through, we do have court services already installed in the city court system. The judges are the ones that put those people into those programs for depending on what their charges are. So all those programs are in place to help them get through their charges.
And again, this is where I think Brian and I differ with regards to being an effective leader in that office and identifying that we can play a role with recidivism. And what I mean by that is offering other programs to the city court judges that say, listen, the deputy marshal will do these things. If you sentence in there, we will do some things to help educate this person, to help this person get through the conflicts of whatever it is. So I think that's where he and I differ in terms of, Brian just thinks, well, this is where a status quo is, and this is what we're going to keep doing. And I think we look forward as a progressive city, as a growing city. We say, how can we get better? And as a city marshal, I think that we can play a role, Ian, to some extent on helping people through some trying times.
Back to the audience. Are you a member of the PressClub, sir?
No, I'm not.
And unfortunately, we have to, again, unless you're a member of the PressClub, we cannot accept the question. Only for members of the PressClub, please. Go ahead, Marshall.
I believe both of you, leading up to the election, referenced a desire to increase minorities in office. How do you propose doing that?
A very high issue, high problem, I think, or a problem that I want to resolve immediately is diversity in that office. And so the first day in office, I intend to hire someone within the administration of my office of color to help represent that community. We also need to look at how do we recruit good applicants in that community, make sure that we get some good applications so that we have qualified people to choose from. And through attrition, over a period of time, we work on balancing that situation.
We have a recruitment plan. Like I said, we are accredited by CALEA. We did show proof on that standard that we do take in the applications of all people. Diversity is more than black and white. Diversity is everything. Race, color, sex, physical abilities, everything. We just had 2 minority deputies that just retired, 28-year veterans within the last couple of years. That's when our diversity did diminish. It's just happened in the last couple of years, and when I do take office, I will correct that by recruiting the people. You have to go out and get them. You get applications in, but not every time you get an application from somebody that there's falsification on it, or they might have a record that they lied about, or if they can't pass the physical abilities test with the city of Lafayette, we can't hire anybody unless they can pass that through the city of Lafayette. And that's the only time we can hire people is once they pass that.
And as the patrol commander of the sheriff's office, we had a very diverse workforce there, and every one of those people met the rigorous requirements that Brian speaks of. So it's a matter of priority, I think, and for the last 10 years that we haven't seen that. And I do agree that there were 2 people that were recently retired. But we should have the vision as a leader to see that those people are nearing retirement, and we should be increasing the hiring of minorities. And again, it's not a, I don't want to say it's a black and white issue, and I've never said that. What I said is it's important that we reflect the entire diversity of our community, and we need to work to that. And Brian, as an administrator of that office, can't speak to that. I mean, he can't say that he's done that, and I did as the patrol commander of the sheriff's office.
Brian, do you want to respond to that?
Like I said, we did address it before we got the applications. We showed proof of that in accreditation that we had the applications in. If the person doesn't fit the application or falsifies or lies or whatever the case may be, when you can't hire, we have a staff of 21 people, okay? 3 civilian, 18 gun carrying, counting the marshal. If somebody retires, we don't have a lot of time to spend trying to hire people. We can't just wait and wait and wait for the right person. You have to hire the most qualified person that you get at the time, because when there's one person missing out of that staff on a day-to-day operations, we feel it, because that's a full staff.
Again, members of the press. Billy.
Mr. Puff, Mr. Judy's twice has brought out that you have to file campaign finance. What's the holdup?
That's fine.
It's filed.
Yes, sir.
Okay. What's the holdup?
It's under appeal.
Both of you talk about your experience in law enforcement. Of course, you've had interactions not only with the sheriff's office and marshal's office, but obviously with the Lafayette Police Department and other municipal police departments in the parish. As city marshal, what would you do to build relations with those departments and create possible inter-office agreements or programs with those other municipal police departments as well as the sheriff's office? Brian, go ahead.
We've always worked closely with every agency in Lafayette. We've always had a good relationship, even to this day. The guys on the road, on the street, have always worked good with them. City police, sheriff's department, park rangers, other municipalities outside of the city, Broussard, Youngsville, Scott, whatever comes into play, the Lafayette City Marshal's Office has always been there to help, always been there to back up. Whenever they needed us, we were there.
Yeah, I don't dispute that. I think, and Brian has referred people to me when there were situations outside the city, and I've referred people to Brian when they had issues inside the city. But it goes well beyond that. I think, and I've already began that work, laying the groundwork with the chiefs of police of the surrounding town, with the sheriff, with the Lafayette police chief, to try to bring some innovative ideas with regards to how the city marshal's office can be of service and how we can support those mechanisms. I don't dispute the fact that the street level officers work well together. I think they always have. The question is, when the administrators work together, that we move the city way forward and we continue to do a better job as a city marshal and the sheriff and the chief of police, etc. So I think that we do have some room for improvement there. And I've laid that groundwork. I've already spoken with all of them and told them how committed I will be to being a partner with all of them.
My other question, and this may be thinking a little bit too far ahead, but with the marshal's office, you have to figure one elected position leads to leapfrogging to another one. If elected, will you consider running for another office before your 6-year term is up? Kip.
I am absolutely committed to being the city marshal for the next 6 years. Without a doubt, I have no intentions to run for any other political office, ever. And I'll tell you that it's pretty simple. When you consider that I am at the maximum in terms of my years of service at the sheriff's office for pension, that's not a very logical decision for me. I would stay at the marshal's office and certainly begin looking at a re-election in beyond the 6 years. So, yeah, I'm not running for any other office.
Brian?
Well, I retired from the marshal's office to run for this position. I worked there my whole career. When I get elected, I can't go back in the system, but that doesn't have any motivation for me not to be the city marshal. That's what I'm going to be, and that's where I'm going to stay, and I'm going to retire as a city marshal.
Marissa?
If you could ask your opponent one question, what would it be?
Wow. Well, I would ask him to explain to the people how a person, a responsible person, and listen, I want to set the record clear from a personal standpoint. Brian and I were friends before this started, but this is, to me, again, an issue about who we are. And how does a person deduct money from a child support to a single mom over a period of time and end up with almost a $7,000 debt in child support at the same time buying a $558,000 house in Riverbank? I think that it goes to the character of a person. So I would ask him to try to explain that.
Brian, you want to respond?
I can explain it very well.
Go ahead.
I'm remarried to Carrie for 13 years. My child support was paid. I paid my former wife almost $84,000 in child support. The discrepancy was a handshake agreement that we had about car insurance, and it was settled in court through Judge Blanchette. If you check the minutes, Judge Blanchette stated in the end that it was no doubt in his mind that I did my obligations, but it wasn't in writing, so whatever I deducted from her was paid back, and it's finished. The question I have to ask for him is, you know, we're talking about transparency. So I'm willing to produce my personnel file from the Lafayette City Marshal's office to the public as a record, and if you can do the same, let's get yours out there.
Sure. Well,
And your internal file spare. Let's get it all out there.
I certainly don't control that. I'm not the sheriff. But I'll tell you, what I'll tell you is, when the question came from some media with regards to the incident I was disciplined for, I encouraged the sheriff to release it. I told him I thought it was important that the public know. So from a transparency standpoint, I have nothing. Again, I've worked at an agency that has a higher standard, Brian, and I don't have a problem with that. And I've continued. I have no problem with it. I don't control that record. Sheriff Newstrom does.
Well, let's get him on the phone and produce it. I can get the marshal and he'll produce mine. I've never violated a policy in the Lafayette City Marshals in my whole career.
Brian, I have copies of emails right here from the court documents from Brian Pope at LaFayetteLA.gov. There's a policy in the city administration that you do not use governmental emails for private business, and you did it. There's emails between you and your wife, or your ex-wife, that says, I will only tell you one more time, do not take any funds out of my child support. It's in the court records. And it's a violation of policy. You just weren't held accountable to it. That's it. That's the difference.
From a legal standpoint, can a personnel file be disclosed?
I'm willing to put him on. I don't have anything in my record.
I'll tell you that the sheriff does not have to produce it. Now, I think that there's some people in the media who would dispute that and would say, look, we would take it to take it to court, and then potentially a court may say, sheriff, you have to release it. But again, I don't know that the sheriff has any intentions on releasing that. And I think what I was told when I asked the sheriff to release it, he said it sets a precedent for further down the road, and then he has to keep the same standard beyond that. So that's why he hasn't done it.
It's all about people's records. I mean, whether you have a record or you don't have a record.
Let's go ahead and leave it there, gentlemen. Marie?
Speaking of records, how do you plan to work with the media at City Marshall?
We've always been open to the media. It'll stay the same. Our door's always been open. Any reporter can tell you they've always been able to access either me, the marshal, or the chief deputy.
And I have a record of dealing with the media. Many people who work in the media do know that. So it would be better. It would be better with regards to transparency, openness. It would be better with regards to where we're headed as an agency. And again, from the platform issues, I would want to make sure that the media was aware that we were keeping our promises.
Brandon, go ahead.
What have each of you learned or seen from the people of Lafayette as you've been campaigning? What are their concerns?
Well, I hear a lot about it's time for change. It's a good thing. It's time for some change. It's time for that office to move into the next era. And I get that from walking door to door, talking with community groups, and et cetera. So I get a lot of that. I think also I think people are ready to see new vision, new leadership in there. So the change has been the one thing I've heard in the community pretty often.
Same thing, change. What does the city marshal's office do to explain that? A lot of people didn't know. In our polling, there was a lot of undecided vote. And me and my wife walking door to door, she was actually better, could almost explain it better than I could. So she was very good at that. And it was nice to see that people were concerned and about wanting to know what the city marshal was, because this election for city marshal's never been this publicized and excitement about it, and a lot of people want to know what we do for a living.
Leslie's raising his camera. I thought he was raising his hand.
What more do you?
Billy, go ahead.
I was, any plans to consolidate city marshal with Lafayette Sheriff's Office?
I have no plans to do that. And now, I would like to, Billy, I would like to consolidate some of the services. And what I mean by that is not merging them, but looking at where we are going. Many times, the same people have subpoenas in district court that have in city court, especially attorneys. So where we're going out from downtown area out to some of these law offices off of College Saloon, off of Barrow School Road, etc. Potentially we could discuss and consolidate some computer programs there and say, look, one car goes out, not a sheriff's car and a deputy marshal's car, go out for the same attorneys to bring the subpoenas for the two groups. I also think that there's room for consolidation in terms of the warrants department, the warrants computer program. One warrant system housing all of the data so that we don't have to look into two programs to determine whether or not there's a warrant for a certain. So that from that standpoint, but in terms of dismantling either one of those agencies, I don't think that's workable.
Ryan?
The Lafayette City Marshal's Office is an unconsolidatable, unduplicatable service to the City Court of Lafayette. The only way that could be changed is if they abolish City Court. The office has been in existence since 1910, 104 years old. So there's no consolidation necessary. We do the service to City Court, just like the Sheriff's Department serves the District Court, and the Federal Marshal serves the Federal Court. Everybody has a job to do, and that's what we do.
Ian, I would just ask you to. So you disagree with the fact that one car going out to College Saloon Road to deliver both sets of subpoenas would be a good idea, or I'm not getting it, Brian?
That's your job. I mean, you have to serve District Court, we serve City Court.
I understand.
We're not serving our subpoenas.
I understand that, but why not utilize the resource of a car's leaving the same spot, 2 blocks away from it? Why not utilize the fuel and the manpower as opposed to duplicating
Why
that?
don't you tell them the truth and say you want to consolidate the two agencies?
Okay,
I do not want to say
gentlemen.
that. Yeah, I do tell
You already said it.
All right, gentlemen.
Talking in circles.
We'll go ahead and leave that argument there. Before we close out, because we are running out of time, I do want to ask you two if you can stick around after. We do have a good number of folks from the general public who came. I do want to give them an opportunity, once this is all over, for them to ask questions. Because again, because of the way the format and rules are written, it was open only press club members. And again, to all the members of the general public who came out today, thank you. Appreciate it. We appreciate you taking an interest in your community. We've got about 20 minutes left in the press club, so to give Dr. Cross some time, we'll go ahead and give each of you 2 minutes for closing statements. I started with Kip last time, so we'll go ahead and start with Brian this time.
I'd like to thank the Press Club again for having us today so that they can hear our views and our vision for the future, who will be the next city marshal. I'd like to thank God for giving me the ability to be here. I think I stand alone. Experience with the office, 22 years, accreditation manager, my educational experience with a degree from USL, Criminal Justice Administration. My leadership, my proven leadership with the office stands alone from him. He does not have the leadership with the Marshal's office that I've had, and I want to be your next city marshal, so please vote for me, December 6th, Brian Pope, number 69.
And certainly, I do not want to say that I have his experience because it's minute with respect to what I have in the past 29 years, and especially the last 10 years in the administration of the sheriff's office. It takes more than a college degree to run an office and to be an effective leader. And when you're tapped as a critical incident commander for a train derailment, when you're tapped as a critical incident commander for the Cajun Dome Evacuation Center, those are some signals that you've become a very effective leader. And I was assigned both of those tasks. So again, I think the people of Lafayette have a right to know, have a right to have a very transparent elected official, and I have it. And I have no problems with doing anything or answering any questions at any time. So certainly I think that I am the better candidate. I am the more experienced, the person ready to lead. And beyond January 1st, I'm ready to lead through the rest of this term and start looking at beyond that as well. So certainly I think that's the difference between Brian and I, is that Brian can talk about some things, but Brian hasn't done it. I have, as a Sheriff's Office Administrator, have made those tough decisions and found those qualified candidates of diverse issues and all those things that that Brian says he cannot do. So certainly I would appreciate your vote. Number 67, Kip Judice for Lafayette City Marshal.
For those who want to find out more information about you, do you have websites?
I have one, kipformarshall.com.
Facebook, Rocket.
And for those of you who want to catch any part of this forum that you may have missed, go on the Acadiana Open channel at some point in the next few days. It's going to be running Thursday, Friday?
Thursday.
We'll be running Thursday on the Acadiana Open channel, of course. Well, I would say check your Cox or LUS listings, but those probably won't be updated by then. Just keep on checking AOC and AOCinc.org. They'll have the information. You can catch any part of the debate there, and of course, we'll run several more times leading up to the December 4th election. Brian, Kip, we thank you both for your time today. Thank you for being here. And again, for those of you from the general public who did come today, I should say, please stick around. We'll go ahead and take your questions right after we hear from Dr. Pearson Cross. Ladies and gentlemen, a hand for both. And now, live and direct from the campus of the University of Louisiana, political science guru, Dr. Pearson Cross.
I'm kind of surprised. I didn't realize that you wanted me to actually say anything. So I'm here, and I'd be glad to take questions of general. But this race I think speaks for itself. It's a race that's run on local issues with local personalities, and it's one of the foundations of American government, which are the people running in the community that know them, and they've been around a long time. And the surprises I don't think here. I think it's I'm not going to handicap the race or come out for anybody. That would be inappropriate, obviously. But I think this is one of the great things that makes our government wonderful. That we get to pick people who work so closely with us on a daily basis. And in this race, these kind of races and judicial races too, it comes down about temperament, personality, effectiveness, character. Those are the issues that are really the most important. And I think with 38,000 or so votes cast, one of the things that's going to be an issue, I know for these gentlemen, they're thinking very strongly about turnout. How am I going to get my people to come out and vote for me? I don't know about his people, but how am I going to get my people, and what am I going to do? And so I'm guessing that they're spending most of their time strategizing, working networks of friends and acquaintances, and making as many meetings as they can and doing those sorts of things. So other than that, that's kind of it.
Let's jump to the Senate race. It seems as if it's Bill Cassidy's race to lose at this point. What's your take?
Well, Mary Landers says that she has a path to victory, and certainly she would have to say that to maintain that optimism, and she may. It's hard to bet against Mary after winning 3 times. But on the other hand, this does seem to be kind of a different election cycle, with a particularly kind of poisonous atmosphere in Washington. Mary's having some problems getting white voters to support her. I think that figure 18% was widely publicized, that only 18% of white voters in Louisiana had supported Mary Landrieu. She got 96% of black voters. So if she continues to get 96% of black voters and gets 18% of white voters, she'll lose. So she needs to find a way to get to 30%, roughly speaking. If she can maintain that share of African American voters at the same turnout ratio, she needs to get to about 30%. Can she do it? Are Rob Manus voters going to vote for her? I think there'll be some. I don't think it's unanimous there, because some of the Manus voters are pox on both your party's voters, and they're not going to go out and vote. Other voters are more likely ideologically to be aligned with the Republican Party, and they'll pull the lever for Cassidy. Question is, and she's thinking the same question these gentlemen are thinking, turnout. How can I push people who haven't voted, who skipped the vote, who didn't think it was important, who, she's probably working a number of arguments there, obviously some of the moves that have taken place in the Senate have taken away some of the effectiveness of Mary's arguments, but also cut against Cassidy a little bit, because there's no longer the urgency to defeat Mary in order to get the Senate to flop over to Republicans. So, voters could make a sentimental choice for Mary Landrieu and still have a Republican Senate. So I don't know if they'll do that. That belongs to the calculation that each voter exerts when they go into that voting booth, and that's something that we'd love to unpack that, but it's a pretty retail process. We only talk statistics. So at this point, I'd have to say Cassidy's the favorite, and barring some sort of election turnout kind of next senator, but obviously, never say never, so.
I was speaking with a local radio talk host who shall go unnamed, and we were discussing, and somewhere in the conversation it came up that Republicans historically in Louisiana have a bad habit of screwing up federal elections, especially in the runoff. Is there any way that Bill Cassidy can mess this election up so bad that he loses, or is right now doing this on Mary Landry to build up her support and try to surpass Cassidy's advantage at this point?
Well, I think Cassidy's got a good team, and I think they've kept him away from any major gaffes, and I don't think that he's, so far in this campaign, I mean, he's not the world's most experienced or most natural politician, but he hasn't made any major gaffes. It's been a fairly error-free campaign. He hasn't put himself in a position where he would run into some problems, so I don't anticipate that he's going to make any major mistake. Obviously, Mary Landry would love to have him make a major mistake. That would really potentially get her, energize her campaign and get people really thinking hard about Bill Cassidy and say maybe he's not the right choice. But absent that major mistake, which I don't expect him to make, it's pretty tough.
I was waiting for my Kate LP.
Mary Landry has come out against Cassidy saying she wants more debates from him, wants more debates. Are these debates in the current format that they're in even worth doing in these Senate? I know as a fact from worth maybe people watching, the people that do pay attention to know what candidates, what they stand for. But as far as impacting voters across the state, are they even worth doing anymore?
Well, there are two questions there. The first one would be, yeah, it's always worth doing a debate between two candidates for an office like this, especially when we haven't had that many debates with the two major candidates there. So I would say yes, it is. But the second question then would be, is it consequential in terms of who gets elected or so on? I don't think so. Ultimately, I really don't. I mean, if you take the slice, if you think about the checklist of what electors vote for, they vote for Republican, Democrat, partisan first. They vote for attachment, family attachment, kind of historical circumstances. They look at big issues and so on. Most of those things have been decided already. So you're talking about a pool of voters who really have been not tuned in particularly, right? That haven't made a decision. Who in this room has not decided who they're going to vote for senator, right? You would be the person, you would be the people who would know, right? So we'd have to look in a different room. And then we'd have to ask ourselves, are those people going to be watching that debate? And then are they going to make a decision based on the debate? And I think that's very, very short, small, cool. But I hate to say, no, don't have debates. I think debates are a great thing. This has been a very informative debate right here.
Maureen?
You were here for our DA forum last month.
Right.
What were your thoughts on that outcome?
Went about like expected. I thought Harsin showed that he had real strength and that he wasn't damaged in Acadia and Vermilion, as much, and that's what we all kind of expected. It was kind of a rancorous campaign. I was disappointed by some of the parties at the end and some of the exclusions and some of the things that happened. But in that kind of a campaign where there was kind of a major scandal type issue hanging over a campaign, you often see that kind of stuff. But I just hope that we could all kind of move on. But I thought it was a strong show of loyalty and support for Mike Harsin, given the fact that many people like me came out immediately as soon as the scandal broke and said, well, he's toast, he's history. It's a good thing he's retiring, which then, of course, he didn't decide to do. So considering that he ran against those kind of odds, I thought he had a very strong show. But
Looking at the overall outcome, the turnout, the winners and losers, just in all the races, what was your analysis just of where we are as a voting population?
Well, here in Louisiana, it's clear that we are continuing to become more and more a red state and more state that's divided. The party system is racially divided, So as the number of Democrats, African Americans now make up, I think, 65%. No, not quite that much. I'm sorry. About 55% of registration in the Democratic Party and rising. Number of white registered voters registered as Democrats keeps dropping. So we really are becoming like the rest of the South. For a long time, as you probably know, being French and Acadian and Catholic kept us more or less from being an entirely red state like Alabama or Mississippi or South Carolina. But now we've kind of completed that process. And so looking ahead, we're going to be, with Oklahoma, with Utah, with some of those states, the most red of the red states, I think, for the next generation, perhaps. You know, we don't have a demographic revolution in our future, like, say, Texas or North Carolina or Virginia. You know, we're kind of biracial right now. We have a small 5%, 4.6% Hispanic population right now. So we're not going to see those big changes for the foreseeable future. So for the foreseeable future, we're going to be a Republican state. So it looks like the Republican Party is going to have hegemony, one of those words that we use in political science.
Let's take a look at the northeastern part of the state in District 5, District 5 with Jamie Mayo and Ralph Lee Abraham. Ralph Lee Abraham, unless you follow politics in that area, you didn't know who was the means of selection. Jamie Mayo, of course, the track record is the mayor of Monroe. How would you handicap that race?
It's Abraham's race, mostly, I think. I think there'll be, I think it'll break along racial lines. African Americans will vote for Jamie Mayo. I think there'll be some white crossover vote. Mayo's well liked in the Monroe community by a number of influential whites, but I don't think in that whole district it's going to be enough to break that thing. I'd say it's going to be 58-42 for Abraham.
And back towards Baton Rouge with Edwin Edwards. What are his chances?
Oh, well, it would have been better against Lennar Whitman. Graves is going to just cruise to victory in there, and I see a 65-30 race there. I don't think there's any chance that Edwin Edwards is going to make it. I think this is his last hurrah. I think really this may be his last hurrah. Of course, congressional elections happen every 2 years, so we may have another chance.
Well, his last hurrah allegedly was in 1979, 1980, and of course, look what happened.
That's right. So Garrett Graves, obviously pretty safe, pretty secure. Interestingly, money paid in that race. You know, there was a real sense that Garrett raised 5 times as much money as anybody else, and at the end of the day, I think, I don't want to say Garrett's not a good candidate or a good representative, but I think that was a race where it mattered, I think. Nobody else caught part.
Any other questions for me?
On the press.
You know what? We've got 10 minutes left. I've got no other questions. I'll go ahead and open up. Wallace, go ahead.
Thank you. Not being part of the press, don't leave right now. Not being part of the press,
That's
I have
right.
a talk show. I have a talk show on Friday on KJCB 770 AM. The question is, you're a political analyst, and by you being here today, how do you analyze these 2 gentlemen and their wins?
I mean, how do I handicap them? Yeah. Well, you know, I looked at some of the numbers just while I was sitting here. I dialed up the Secretary of State's website because I didn't have these numbers off the top of my head. And we've now washed the Democrats out of this race, and I think that's significant for some people. Remember, I said that partisan would shift, Republican or Democrat was a really important factor. So the 2 Democrats in the race were Joseph Cormier and Nikki Picard. Together, they had about 34% of the vote. Brian Koch came in first at 37. Kip Giudice came in at 28.5, so there's 9 points there. But Kip is listed as no party, right? And Brian's listed as Republican. So really, it depends what the Democrats are going to do in this race without a natural Democrat to vote for. So for people who pull that lever. So if that's really the wild card in this race. If there were an African American in this race who was a Democrat, I would say strongly those votes would go there, but there's not. So at this point, I think it depends. That would be my analysis, how that breaks there. You know, I mean, the candidates are close enough. It's clearly that the balance of power lies in the voters who originally pulled the lever for either Nikki Picard or Joseph Cormier. That being said, however, you'd have to say that this is. Remember, Lafayette Parish voted slightly over 50% for Bill Cassidy in the first round. So we are a very Republican parish, we're a very conservative parish. So you'd have to say that certainly Brian Pope having an R behind his name, that's a gain for him. People who, you know, vote from a partisan standpoint might just pull that lever. Now, the sentimental favorite, Nikki Picard, is gone. So, in other words, I'm hedging all my bets on this one. But that's kind of my quick breakdown of this.
That was a great 2-minute answer to hedge and beg. You could be running for office anytime soon?
No.
Any other questions? Yeah, go ahead.
On
Go
a
ahead, state your
friendship
name.
basis, we all friends amongst here, and you two are very good friends. Would either one of you consider hiring your opposing candidate for a job? Kip, I'll start with you.
Okay. I would not be, I have not ruled out anything, Brother John, with regards to employing people. I'm really looking, I'm focused on this race. And so with respect to potential employment, yeah, I mean, if there was something there that he could bring to the table and we could work to something potentially, but certainly we haven't discussed that in any realm, and I just don't, I mean, it's a premature question, I guess. But I wouldn't say it's ruled out, if that helps.
Brian?
Never shut a political door.
I got one more question.
Go ahead.
Out of the two candidates, who would be the most qualified, A1, to go in office and handle it the way it's supposed to be handled in the marshal office? Which one would be most qualified?
Of course, they would say each other.
Yeah. I'm the one that knows the office the best. I've been there the longest. I have the most experience in improving leadership in that office.
And if you want status quo, he is a better guy. But let me tell you something. If you want improvement, if you want a better marshal's office, if you want that marshal's office to move forward, I'm your better guy.
Okay.
Front row.
Mr. Judy, I just want to clarify the question that was raised earlier
Sure.
about the incident with the sheriff's department that you were disciplined for.
Right.
It was for drinking and driving in your police unit, correct?
Yeah, it wasn't, no, I wasn't drinking and driving in my police car. That's not what it was. I went to a party, I consumed a beer, and then I drove the car home several hours later.
Your police unit.
It's an unmarked police
After
car.
leaving,
Yes.
it matters to you whether it's a marked or unmarked?
No, it doesn't, but I'm just telling-
Appropriateness of drinking and driving?
I was clarifying the type of car I was driving, that's it. But no, I was not drinking and driving in the car. I was not. I consumed a beer, and then I drove home several hours later. That was the allegation.
In your police unit?
Yes.
And for that, it was a 3-day suspension, correct?
Correct. And there's no violation of the law. Never was alleged to be a violation of the law.
But does it hinge on the violation of the law? And I'll just tell you for reference, I'm a person whose mother was killed by a drunk driver when
Sure.
I was 11.
Right.
So it doesn't matter to me whether it's against
I
the
wasn't
law
drunk.
or not.
I wasn't drunk.
Well, there was no test at the time, correct?
Right. But I wasn't driving erratically or pulled over.
Any further questions?
I have one.
All right.
Along Dr. Cross's, just curious, I know both candidates. I know Kip's independent and Brian's Republican. Were you guys always independent Republican? You guys switched? Just curious.
I've always been. Quick story. My dad woke me up when I was 18 years old, said go register to vote. I had no idea, and in 1983 there were no cell phones to call my daddy and ask. So I just checked off no party. I thought that was the wise thing to do. And so that's since my 18th birthday, March 20th, 1983. That's been my party registration. Now I have voted across party lines on numerous occasions. I typically vote for the person who impresses me most with a platform and a plan. So, but in terms of, I've always been a no party.
As a child, 18 years old, as I know Dr. Cross would say, that Louisiana used to be a Democratic state. As an 18-year-old, we did register as Democrat because that's what our parents were. As I move forward in life, I've always voted for the person. I did change to Republican in 2010, and I did run for another office, and I was elected to that office. I ran for the Republican Executive Committee, and I ran that successful election before, so this is not my first election.
Out of curiosity, and I'm glad you brought that up, with holding the marshal's office, would you be required to give up that seat on the Republican committee, or there's no conflict?
It's a committee, it's not a paid position.
Okay, I wasn't sure what the law surrounding that was.
Nikki Picard is on the Democratic Executive Committee.
Really?
Yeah, so it's okay.
There's one thing I've learned.
It's not a conflict.
I didn't know that. Nice. I'm happy Nick will still be active in politics when it's all said and done. But again, gentlemen, we want to thank you for coming in today, and once again, a round of applause for all our candidates. that didn't want to do it on the record, they should be sticking around for a little bit. For those of you watching on AOC, stay tuned. More great programming on the way. For the rest of you, thank you for joining us today here at the Press Club meeting. Not sure what we're doing for December, if we're doing anything December, but if we do, we hope to see you back here. Thank you all.